1935, the Lions win the NFL championship. The Detroit Tigers take the World Series. The Red Wings bring home Lord Stanley's Cup. Joe Louis begins his rise to world domination. This transforms the Motor City into Detroit, City of Champions.
All right, sticking it in the ground, Detroit City of Champions, the podcast. I'm Jamie Flanagan. We're picking up the story where we left off last time with Walter Hagen. It's an amazing story, 1935, all the winning teams, and we're deep into the golf story now. Walter Hagen, he's trying to play in the British Open. Americans haven't been really welcomed in the British Open very well. Kind of treated a little poorly by the press, so Walter was doing some preemptive media by bringing his own reporter with him, and yet still hatchet job. So we're going to find out what happened after this horrific hatchet job of an article went live in the paper right before he's supposed to play, and all the other obstacles he faced before he could play in the British Open, and then ultimately how he did, how well he did. Spoiler alert, we're gonna find that out before this episode's over and see where he finished. Is it in the top? We shall see as we continue with Charles Avison, the author of the trilogy of books, Detroit City of Champions, as we're into the story here on Walter Hagen. Hey, thank you for being with us. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, all that business. And we're back into it where Charles and I left off.
The headline from the next day.
Reader Skeeter had her way with it. And,
So
what's it say?
So here's the headline from the very next day.
Oh, God.
Cocky doodle doo. Walter Hagen, boastful American champion, is boyishly confident of winning the British Cup, which only once in its history has ever left British shores. Hagen says that no golfer should be over 72 around Deal. He intends to show us how to play the game, and he prefers to pitch to the flag so close he doesn't have to putt. But he is going to putt to prove he can putt. That's the headline. That's the intro to the article. So nice coverage of him. That's the coverage he gets.
Did you even listen to me?
Did you even listen to a word I said? So that's the coverage he gets.
Did you pull a Mitch album and have this written before you came?
Yeah. So that's the coverage he gets when he first lands there. And so it convinces him immediately, well, I'm glad I brought my own reporter now because this is the only way I'm going to get a fair shake, right?
Yeah.
So there is a whole section here where he talks about. He actually was pretty upset about this and about that whole thing. And so what was interesting is that he knew the editor, the owner of the Daily Mail from this time, whose name was Lord Northcliffe. He had, and I think we actually briefly mentioned him earlier. But he knew Lord Northcliffe, and he actually went to Lord Northcliffe's house.
Can somebody run this message over to Lord Northcliffe?
Yeah.
You're a dick.
Yeah, that's exactly what he did. That's what he did. And he went to Lord Northcliffe, and Lord Northcliffe went golfing with him. Yeah. And so he basically goes, hey, Hagen, the British Open's really important to us.
Come on.
The British Open's really important to us. We gotta, we can't have you come in here and we're super nice to you. There's a lot of resistance to you and everything. We don't like people trying to take our British Open.
Come on, let's go golfing.
Yeah. So he goes.
There's beer on the golf course.
Yeah.
What kind?
Yeah.
He's like Thor. What kind of beer?
But it's just kind of awesome that he's like. He's like, do you know who you're writing the story about? I'm friends with the owner of your paper. So Hagen knows. So go, like you said, he goes to the guy's house. They go golfing together. They probably have some drinks. Northcliffe's like, hey, man, it's just kind of the way. They're gardeners. There's your big story and all this. We're trying to put stuff out. So anyways,
with all due respect,
so the guy ended up putting a miniature retraction in the paper, which sort of retracted a little bit. So there was a little bit of a happy ending to a certain extent.
Cool. Yeah.
But Hagen's like, well, good thing he knew the owner of the paper and all that, right? Because otherwise he's getting beat up, and good thing he's got his American, because he's like, this is within the first day he's got off the ship, right? The first day he's got off the ship. So
I want to go back. I want to drink some champagne with the actress.
So
again.
we're gonna see this is going through. This is kind of a this is not going to be an easy story to get through. So Hagen wants to go and practice that this course to get used to it. But you had to be invited to practice there for anything besides the U.S. Open. He got the U.S. Open invite, but he didn't get an invite to go practice there.
Right.
So he didn't get to go practice practice there prior to the course, right?
And a links course.
Yeah.
Over England, Ireland. compared to courses here in the States that call themselves links courses, those are two entirely different.
That's what he's saying in there.
It is a map is not going to tell you the craziness that is a true links course.
Well, that's what Hagen's saying. I wanted to go play in this course, but I couldn't do it. They didn't invite me.
Yeah.
So he couldn't even go practice on it.
Yeah.
So it's like, that sucks.
Anyone over there is going to give you a good impression of like, holy crap.
Well, not one. I mean, this is one that's on the ocean side. The wind and all this, and so he didn't even get to go practice there. And so instead, he kind of got roped into doing this exhibition. He was he's fine to do it. He wanted to get his game going and all this, but he wanted to really go to deal.
Yeah.
And so
what's the deal?
Yeah, so he wants to go to deal, and one of the reasons besides just practicing is that the three greatest British golfers are there. They're practicing,
right.
And he wanted to go there to just not only just practice, but he wanted to watch these guys.
He did that with somebody else. He really was
Harry Vardon.
Yeah,
that's the guy, and that's the guy. But he didn't get a chance to watch Harry Vardon in the Brookline because he left. Remember at the end of the tournament before the final shootout. Everybody else was rolling into Brookline to watch the famous last day, the tiebreaker game, set, and he's so mad at how he missed out by just a couple of strokes that he actually just took off and missed the whole final day. But he was most mad, of course, because he didn't get to watch Harry Vardon. But in this case, so the three greatest golfers in the world, Ted Ray was good, but he wasn't one of these three. So it was a guy named James Braid, Harry Vardon, of course, and John Henry Taylor.
All right.
So James Braid had won this British Open 5 times.
Wow.
Harry Vardon had won it 6 times.
Hey.
And John Henry Taylor had won it 5 times.
Wow.
So if you look at, if this is what's cool, I was going to put a graphic of this, but I figured anybody could just look this up. If you look at, I just went to Wikipedia to look at, the who won, from 1894 to 1914. You just look at, the list of British Open winners.
3 different people.
Yeah, if you look at the British Open winners
2 guys
on Wikipedia for just the history of British Open winners.
Yeah.
When you get between 1894 and 1914, quite literally, all you see, they show the first and second place finishers for the British Open. And it's one of these 3 guys, whether it's first or second place. Yeah. It's one of these 3 guys for every single year from 1894 to 1914. There's a couple of holes.
Sure.
There's but otherwise it's
ostensively,
it's crazy. You're these guys are British Open masters.
Yeah.
That's all they do is win British Opens, and they're practicing on
Is
Deal.
the British Open always held at?
No, it
Deal?
rotates.
It rotates.
Yeah,
Okay.
they hasn't been in Deal in a long time. I don't think it's been
okay.
there since. It might have been one more after this, and it hasn't been to Deal again since.
All right.
They have a lot of tournaments there, but I don't think the British Open's been
Augusta is always hosted.
Yeah, no, this one has not.
Right, so
no,
this
I don't.
is-
Yeah, this was. So at the time it was big, but
Okay.
So anyway, so he that was one of the reasons he wanted to go was to meet these guys. But instead, so he gets kind of roped in to do this exhibition, and there's an American golfer named Jim Barnes who's very, he was in his day with Hagen, he was a big name golfer too. Jim Barnes, he would end up winning a British Open a couple years after this,
cool.
but Jim Barnes was a big name too, and so Jim Barnes and Hagen would form a foursome. He would golf versus a Scottish guy named George Duncan and an English guy named Abe Mitchell, two big name, fairly big names. They weren't in the triumvirate of these 3 British golfers that we just mentioned, but so this set of 4 would golf together, and so it's a little interesting story here about that Hagen talks about, and this is what we're getting into, the influence of America on golf in Britain, right?
Okay.
So the exhibition he keeps calling it Coombe Hall. It's called Coombe Hill. So Coombe Hill is this exhibition. I'm not sure where it's probably nearby Deal in some capacity, but so anyway, so he starts off saying the gallery at Coombe Hill where we played the match was amazed at the American way of putting backspin on the ball. When I did this on one hole in the early part of the match, George Greenwood, an old-time English golf writer, commented that it was only an accident. Jim explained that he frequently did the same thing and proved it with a shot. So Jim Barnes said, I frequently do the same thing, and I'll prove it. And he did it with a shot.
Watch.
Yeah. And so, but Greenwood refused to be convinced. So George Greenwood, an old-time English golf writer, said it was only an accident and refused to be convinced after Jim Barnes says, I do it too. We're these 2 American golfers, and this is what we do. So he's putting backspin on it to get the ball to roll back, right? But Greenwood refused to be convinced, believing it to be some sort of magic we exercised. So at first he says it's an accident. At first he's like, it's an accident. And Jim Barnes like, no, it's not. I just did it again. And he goes, Hagen did it first. And he goes, that was an accident. And Burns goes, no, I did it too. And he goes, well, it must be magic then.
Yeah, that's
the
only reasonable explanation at this point would be magic.
Well, it was an accident. No, it was magic then. So a year later, Jock Hutchinson, the first American by choice pro to win the British Open, startled the gallery at St. Andrews by making the ball take a spin and come back a few feet. So the gallery at St. Andrews, they see the ball roll backwards, like, oh my God!
It's like the mystery spot.
Yeah, it's
the ball rolling up.
I would compare it to the first. Have you ever seen Semi-Pro, the movie Semi-Pro with Will Ferrell? When they first do the alley-oop dunk, right? Have you seen that movie? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So they do the alley-oop, and then the whole crowd goes, oh my God! And then like the ref's whistle drops out of his mouth. They've never seen an alley-oop dunk. It's like 70s. It's like 1970s basketball. So I compare this the making the ball roll back, and the backspin on the ball is like the first alley-oop dunk. And they go, he said, look at this. Look at his words he used. A year later, Jock Hutchinson, the first American by choice pro to win the British Open, startled the gallery at St. Andrews by making the ball take a spin and come back a few feet. They're startled. They're like, oh, like the women are, dude, don't look, honey. That's crazy. Like startled. That's a word.
There's women in the audience.
What are you doing? Yeah, there's a women in here. What are you doing to this? So check this out. When he made a hole-in-one in the 1921 championship, his ball landed on the green a couple of feet past the cup, then came back and dropped into the cup.
Oh.
So he made a backspin hole-in-one at a 1921 championship. You see what I'm saying? Like, so they're like, what in the hell is going on?
Yeah.
This guy here, who's George Greenwood, an old-time English golf writer, first says it's an accident, then it's magic.
Yeah.
And then a year later, Jock Hutchinson a year later, Jock Hutchinson drops a hole-in-one with the backspin. That's just changed everything here. Whenever you watch a golf game today, I dare you to find somebody not dropping a wedge shot or whatever onto the green. Every ball they hit rolls or spins backwards in there, dude.
Yeah, I like the one that they put the top spin on it, and it skims across the par 3 water hazard one. And the guy holding one day.
Oh, right.
Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that one. No.
It's like in the last, so par 3 hole in one. I forget what, it wasn't regulation play. It was kind of like exhibition play in practice. And they have like, do a goofy shot.
Yeah.
Everybody's, see how close you can get to the pin by skipping it across the water. It's just kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And the guy holding one's it.
Damn.
Yeah.
But you see right here, like it's kind of like the last, like what we were talking about, a couple episodes ago, where you don't even think about like, hey, like you're going, I wonder when they started charging admission for golf. That's not something you even think about because it's like automatic. It's such an obvious thing. But there was a time when that was actually, invented. Like it was like an innovation, and there was a reason why it happened. Hagen was at the center of that, one of the most important innovations in golf, right? Now you watch golf on TV, and every single time you see, every single golfer, when they drop a shot on the green, it rolls backwards, right? It rolls backwards. Hagen, I'm telling you the story right here of the first backspin put on the ball in England at the British Open, and it changed the way they play. You see what I'm saying? Like it's not because they're like, oh my God, Jock Hutchinson sunk a hole-in-one with it. I'm sure that they were impressed by it. They're like, well, I better learn how to do that too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Plus, it looks freaking cool. Oh, yeah. Like you're super freaking cool if you can make the ball spin backwards like that, and then drop a shot. Like Jock Hutchinson was looking like the coolest guy in the world with that shot, man.
The dude's name was John Ram, on the 16th hole of the Masters in 2020. He did that. I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to show you this little video. Check it out.
Yeah, let me see. I'll take a look. I'm going to actually grab a drink real quick. Hold on.
Yeah, no. So here it goes. This is John Ram on 16, hitting this shot. Here he goes. It just skimmed across the water. The ball's rolling across the green. It's rolling a good 100 feet across the green.
Jeez,
rolling,
look at that
rolling,
shot.
rolling.
Oh
It's
my
still
God.
going. It had to go 100 feet on the
Oh
the
my
green.
God! Look at that shot.
Right in the hole. Look at that. So
I want to see his reaction. Is he happy about it?
Yeah. Oh my God. It's like, are you kidding me?
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Look at that guy.
So it's kind of like it's just
Dude,
a fun,
I would be way happier than that guy is.
It's a fun thing they do.
I would be so much more. I would be so much happier than that guy. I'd be jumping.
Yeah.
I'm like, look, you see that? You see that?
I don't think that was a regulation shot. I think that I think they do. I think they just do that for fun.
Oh,
but
really?
yeah.
Like in the middle of like a tournament, you're allowed
I think
to
it's
shoot
during
like
like the warm up rounds.
Oh, okay.
And I think they're like, oh, hey, let's see who can do this or that.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's
So-
it was 2020, and it's like, hey, I got a hole in one.
That is a great
How
shot.
do I get out of the share screen? Stop sheen. Okay, there we go.
So, anyways,
So
this
yeah,
is
so that's,
this is
that was
the Americans.
Awful, that was awful audio for anybody watching, just listening to just the audio.
What on that?
Apologies.
Oh yeah, because
For-
we were kind of
so-
we described it.
A little
You
bit.
could- and
Yeah.
plus they can look it up
So
themselves. on
yeah,
their
so
own thing.
that's another episode you have to go see the video.
Yeah,
for.
no,
All right.
we described it pretty well.
I wonder if we get spanked for
So-
copyright.
But so, anyways, this no, I think you're allowed to show pretty much anything as long as it's like if it's under like 30 seconds. I think you can show anything.
No, there's not. That's not true.
I thought I heard
That's
that.
not true.
You
No,
can
that's
show
not true.
different
That's
videos.
a wives' tale. That's a wives' tale.
Well, I thought I heard that somewhere.
It's
because you could get flagged if you show something for longer than a certain amount of
no,
time.
That's
okay.
all for 2 seconds, not even 2 seconds.
Well, you're the
It's-
producer and everything, so you know better than I do.
Yeah, probably broke copyright there.
Okay.
All right.
Whatever. We're good. We're gonna.
So, but the backspin, it was like just astounding people there.
Yeah,
they thought
were
it was
like,
magic.
"Oh my god!" And then, but then
Who
they're
is
like,
it?
but then like, and then Jim Barnes steps up and and hits a spin back, a spin or two,
Hole
and they're
in one,
going,
yeah.
this is an American thing."
You and your American.
These Americans have figured out this, backspin on a golf ball, and then,
Yeah.
but the great thing is that Jock Hutchinson a year later, which is like the ultimate American name, Jock Hutchinson. That's a freaking awesome American name. He's like, Jock Hutchinson comes along the next year, and then sinks a hole in one with a backspin shot. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's an American thing. That's the first time these British, they haven't had a big championship like this. They haven't interacted with Americans in 7 years,
Right.
or 6, 7 years. And now all of a sudden, the Americans come over and like, look what we learned.
Yeah.
We learned we could put backspin on a ball and drop shots with it. You know what I mean? That's a huge thing.
Oh, yeah.
And especially when you see it every single day in
Sure.
golf. So if you who are listening right now, next time you watch a golf or your game or you're talking to somebody about it, like, did you know? Like every time you see it, you remember Hagen. Hagen was the first guy to actually do it, and then the other guys were showing him that, yeah, all Americans do that. It's an American thing, So anyways, yeah, so that's where that started. And so, so like moving right along. So Hagen and Barnes, like, so leading up to the British Open, it's sort of a story that's like we've already seen a couple other times so far. Hagen and Barnes go to the clubhouse in Britain to go change into their gear, right, to get ready for golf. And so, what do you think happens, Jamie?
They don't let him in the clubhouse.
Well, kind of, yeah. But along those lines,
yeah.
it's
it's just what he's wearing, right?
No, well, yeah. Why are you? You're going to see. You're going to see. You're
All right.
not wrong. They don't. They don't let him in, but it's a little bit more to it. So,
All right.
So, anyways, I invited Jim Barnes to drive down to Deal in my rented limousine so we could look over the course and get acquainted with the setup. I liked the impression of the Austin Daimler, complete with chauffeur and footman, made as we pulled up in front of the clubhouse. We climbed out of the car and strolled inside. Being early on an off day, we couldn't find anyone in the clubhouse, so we looked for the locker rooms. We were dressed for golf, except for changing our shoes. While we were making the change, the head locker steward, a little man in a white coat, came hurriedly in our direction. "Are you Mr. Hagen?" he inquired brusquely. "I am," I said, "and this is Mr. Barnes." "Gentlemen," he said importantly, "you're in the wrong place." "This is Deal?" I asked. "Oh, yes, indeed," he assured me, "but you gentlemen are professionals. You'll be using Mr. Hunter's golf shop for dressing." "Well, pardon me," I said, and walked out in my golf shoes, giving the other pair to my hired footman to put in the car. Jim and I went down to the golf shop to pay our respects to Mr. Hunter, the pro, and to look over the facilities. One long spike in the wall had several coats hanging on it and a far corner of many pairs of shoes. The toes turned up like skis were piled disconsolately. I guess the Oakland Hills Golf Club treatment had spoiled me, made me accustomed to being treated as any golfer, pro or amateur, should be. For I took one look at Jim, and he followed me out of the place. I knew we weren't going to use that shop for a dressing room. We'll use my car for a dressing room, I told Jim. We can dress at the tavern in the village and then just change our shoes out here. I got my 2 caddies, and we started. I used my footman as a 4 caddy to train him for the championship. I had told the chauffeur to meet us at the 18th green with my polo coat and to leave the car parked directly in front of the club. So he's got to go through all this rigmarole just to get ready for the thing.
Yeah.
When we played around to Deal's 18th green, the club's Mr. Secretary, a small but important little fellow with a wax mustache, stepped up to greet us. During our walk back to the clubhouse where my car was parked, he apologized for the incident earlier that morning, but explained again that professionals were not allowed in the clubhouse. I told him I was sorry too, but we did not know the rules, and henceforth we used my car. I'll be living at the nearby pub, so I can easily change my shoes and sweater in the car. I'll be living at the nearby pub.
I love that you said that earlier. We'll change at the tavern. I'm like, we're going for drinks.
He's saying, I'll be living at the nearby pub. That's where he's living at. I'll be there drinking up every night.
Don't make me go get cocktails.
So I can easily change my shoes and sweater in the car. He didn't like the idea of parking my car in front of the clubhouse either, and of having the chauffeur meet me at the 18th green. However, I followed that custom throughout my stay. So he walks. They're so used to American golf, where he's been at the Oakland Hills Country Club in Detroit, of course.
Right.
And he goes into Oakland Hills, and he's so used to going to the clubhouse there now. And early in his career,
these are the old ways.
Early in his career, it was forbidden.
Sure.
We talked about already, his only experience at the Rochester Club was just that one time where the guy was using him to go get his rival drunk, and he was running there to the bar to grab drinks for him. But at Oakland Hills in Detroit, he had been at a place where meritocracy was it. Yeah. It was not about aristocracy. It was not about the old guard protecting their little world by saying you're not good enough to be part of our amateur world of aristocracy club.
Yeah.
So, but in Detroit, where he comes there where people from all over the country are flocking with ideas to make money and this and that, he is welcome there as a regular guy. As like, why wouldn't you be able to come in the clubhouse, man? You're a pro. You're our main guy. You're a celebrity. We want you everywhere in this club. You can come anywhere you want. So he was so used to it from the Oakland Hills Country Club world.
Smacked with those old ways.
Yeah. So he goes to Britain and he just forgets.
Yeah.
He forgets. He hasn't been rejected from a clubhouse in years.
Sure.
And so he walks in with Jim Barnes. Hey Jim, let's go into the clubhouse and get ready. Where's the locker room at? And the guy's like, what are you doing?
No.
What are you doing here, right? And Hagen's like, what do you mean?
You vagrant skin.
And so now Hagen, this really flares up his going, I'm going to screw you over, buddy. How in the hell, you're going to throw me out of here?
Yeah.
It's one thing to not be allowed there and to kind of honor the rules. It's another thing for the guy to be like, you're a second-class citizen. It's time for you to leave.
Do you really have to park your car out front?
Yeah, don't embarrass yourself.
Is that where you really want to park your car?
Yeah, then he goes, he didn't like the fact that I was parking my car out front either. He's like, he goes, okay, we won't be in the clubhouse, but we're just going to park our clubhouse out front, The Austin Daimler with a chauffeur and a footman. He's got a footman with it.
He's
awesome.
There's a bar in that car. There's a bar in the car. He's hitting the bar at the tavern.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm going to be living at the pub anyways, So that's where he'd be at. It's like, send my mail to the pub. But that's what I'm saying. Like, so here he is.
Yeah.
This is This is what is happening in America. That it doesn't matter. Like, it's starting that idea is starting to shape. It's starting to change.
Right.
Professional golfers are starting to become big timers, and it's not even ridiculous. Why wouldn't you be allowed in the clubhouse, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm saying that idea in America has already started to change to such a degree that not only him, but Jim Barnes walked in there too, acting like. I mean, Jim Barnes wasn't the Oakland Hills guy, so this idea wasn't unique to Oakland Hills.
Right.
And so Jim Barnes and Hagen walk in like, where's the clubhouse? Let's go. And they're like, you gentlemen are, lower level. You're lower class. You got to go somewhere else. So I'm saying that's another element of America that's now coming in conflict. Coming into conflict. American golf that's coming into conflict with this British, this British style. So
regime.
This like basically pre-World War I mentality. Yeah. So anyways, that's them. Trying to get in the clubhouse. So.
We haven't even played the damn game yet.
Yeah. So anyways, so we haven't even played this. So this is like the sort of entry point to the game.
And then they golfed.
There's a little bit to it. So anyways, so Hagen has a singular sort of memory from the game, from the actual tournament. And what's interesting is it's not really the actual game itself, right? It's not the actual play. So he says, the memory England carried of me from that first attempt at the British Open was not of my golf, but of my golfing attire. So the clothes he wore, what he remembers most about the British Open is the clothes he wore, okay? And they wrote much about my clothes in the British papers. The native players, particularly the amateurs, took great pride in frayed tweed jackets, crumpled knickerbockers, and even boots. I appeared on the first tee that starting day dressed in one of the 12 beautifully harmonizing outfits I'd brought over with me. I wore a black sleeveless pullover sweater, white silk shirt with collar and dark tie, custom-tailored white flannel knickers, and black and white sports shoes. For a break from the black and white, I wore gray golf stockings. Golfers and gallery alike made a special tour around me to take in my sartorial splendor. He's sitting there going, bask in my sartorial splendor. He's describing, that's why I brought this little graphic where it's like you can kind of see it. Like these are 1920s, 1920 pictures of Hagen versus Varden.
Varden's kind of frumpy.
Yeah, you got like the class, your kind of tweed jacket, your tweed pants, nothing ostentatious. They got the high, the knickerbockers, the legging, knee, pants, pantaloon type of things. And so does Hagen, but you can see the difference. Hagen's got the two-tone shoes.
It's tailored. It looks very tailored and crisp.
Totally.
The other one looks frumpy and
exactly. He's kind of like got the kind of laid, like the front, like the tweed. And so Hagen, they're going, look at this guy. This guy is, he's in the way he describes it too. He says, I appeared on that first tee this starting day dressed in one of the 12 beautifully harmonizing outfits I'd brought over with me. And we've already talked in several different examples about Hagen, like when he first saw that one guy, he wanted to look just like him.
Yeah.
So he saved up his money to get the scarf and the shirt and all this. And then he basically just copied that guy's look. And then every single tournament thereafter, he was adding to it and trying to do his own thing and kind of come up with his own thing. But it's like the look is Hagen's bringing out this flashy kind of this whole new look, which is this American style. People are going, this is another thing coming from America. Imagine this Hagen, this best golfer in America, and he's got this new look that they're going, oh, who's this guy? This is golf, man. This is the new, this is the new modern thing. This is the post World War I, roaring 20s golf look. And so he's changing the fashion of golf.
And those two-tone sports shoes.
Yes, you can see it in the picture.
That's still today.
Yeah, look at him. He's rocking it. That's what I'm saying. They didn't rock. They're wearing boots. He said they even wore boots on the course, man. Right. He's like, I'm not wearing boots. I'm wearing two-tone. Look how much time he takes in describing it. He's like, my memory. Yeah. He even says that's his memory. He says, my memory, the memory England carried of me from that attempt at the British Open was not my golf.
Nope.
But my golfing attire.
That's it.
That's it. So that's what I'm saying. He's awesome, man. He's like, I don't think the game was secondary. But maybe it's because it's the way that he played. So that's
yeah. So what do we ultimately know? Are we getting into that?
Yeah, we're getting into it right now.
How did he do? All right.
Not good. Real bad. Real bad. In fact, we'll probably just skip over that section.
Well, those links courses, man, they are unforgiving.
Well, that's what he's
he's notorious. He's notorious for a bad shot and then making it up. There's no recovering from a bad shot.
No, that's what he's saying
on a true links.
Yeah.
That's what you got saying, a bad shot, you are done like dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what he's saying in this. He's saying he actually says we'll read about. We'll see what happened to him. So he says I had a practice. I played one practice round at Deal in 72. I mean, he got a 72 in a practice, so he did get an actual practice round at got a 72. But when I began to play in the championship, it was another story. I didn't start until noon, and some early scores had already been posted. Nothing sensational yet, however. I had a fair-sized gallery waiting to see me play, mostly Americans who expected to see me in my best form. I played fairly well in the first 9 holes. I had a score of 37. But coming back, well, that was really something. I've never in my life seen such wind. Women were holding umbrellas over them while they passed sand traps to be protected from the grit, sand, and pebbles that blew across the fairway.
Wow.
On one tee shot, the ball stayed up in the wind so long, I turned my back on it to keep from being smacked in the face when the current carried it back towards me. So on a tee shot, he hits it, and he has to dodge because it's about to hit him in the face. His own tee shot. That's what he's saying, like a boomerang coming back. So He said I needed a catcher's mask. That shot didn't even carry the rough in front of the tee. The whipping, blustering wind was a new and puzzling experience for me. I was pressing my shots through the fairway and going for everything on the green, with the sad result that my score mounted to a 48, giving me an 85 for a total. I had decided in the beginning that a 300 would not get me anywhere, and I was going all out, but I would gladly have settled for a 75 on each of those first 2 rounds. When I felt myself slipping, I went for every shot as if it were my last. When I finished, I said to Dickie, "Did you ever see me play such terrible golf?" He admitted he had left me at the end of the first 9 holes because he thought he was jinxing my game. He had followed some of the British, but hadn't seen anyone playing much good golf. So this guy's supposed to be reporting. He's just like, I stopped watching you after 9.
I couldn't watch, dude.
I thought I was jinxing you. That's a likely story. Hagen still thinks.
And it got worse.
That's what's kind of funny is Hagen still thinks that Dickie was like, he left him because he actually thought he was jinxing his game. If you read between the lines here, Dickie, he's supposed to be covering Hagen for the American papers. Yeah. Dickie probably just couldn't watch it anymore. Like he's like, I thought I was jinxing your game, so I walked away. He may have left just almost like Hagen walks us into it, like, I can't watch you, Hagen. You're getting destroyed, right? He said Dickie had followed some of the British, but hadn't seen anyone playing much good golf. George Duncan was going badly, and Abe Mitchell with a 74 led him by several strokes. Dickie said, "Just keep going and try for second or third if you can't win." And Hagen says, I don't want second. If I can't win, I don't care where I finish. I told him I won't be any better tomorrow, maybe, but I'm going out to win. I figure I'll either be under 70 or I'll be up over 80. I was determined to beat the British pros, and they were just as determined to take the Americans. We all extended our efforts way beyond the stretching point. I tried to keep fighting. I suppose I should have picked up my ball, as most golfers would. I've never done that, and I intended to show the British that I could take a beating and still smile. I took the beating all right. George Duncan won with a not-too-credible score of 303. I trailed 53rd in a field of 54. One of the British sports writers reported that finished this way. Duncan finished, but not too triumphantly, and made his exit as if he had lost. Yet there was the American, Hagen, finishing up with his head up as if he himself had won instead of finishing far down the also-rans. But it took Deal's little secretary to polish me off. "I'm sorry you didn't do better, Hagen," he gloated, "but golf over here is very difficult. I do hope you'll come back some future year and try again." "Don't worry about me," I told him. "You'll see my name on that cup." He did too, no fewer than 4 times.
There you go.
So Hagen's coming back.
All right.
But you see what he says. So but what's great is that Hagen took a beating and still was like, "Hey, this is great." Like that's what the guy's saying there. He said one of the British sports writers reported that finished this way. Duncan, who had won, finished, but not too triumphantly, and made his exit as if he had lost. Like he was like kind of demure and like, great, And then yet there was the American, Hagen, finishing with his head up as if he himself had won instead of finishing far amongst the also-rans. So Hagen is like, he's like, you guys doing? This is great, I had a great time, He's like this. But it was the secretary, the guy, the original guy who that wasn't happy about him parking in that says, hey, I hope you, it's very difficult over here. Golf is Hagen's the greatest golfer in the United States, winning all these different championships. He comes over here and finishes 53 out of 54.
Man, yeah.
So they're like, well, Hagen, golf is difficult over here. It's not over in America. I'm sure you're the greatest champion around, but here you're 53 out of 54. So that's brutal. That's a brutal way for that guy to come over there and try to throw salt in the wound.
Yeah.
So that's that's Hagen's experience in 1919. He definitely does not win the U.S. Open.
1920 just did.
I'm sorry, 1920. Yeah, 1920
did not get that open.
Yeah, he doesn't get the job. But how much time we got left? We got 5 minutes or so.
No, we're already over an hour, but whatever.
All right, good. We're not gonna. So there is a like sort of light at the end of the happy ending to today's story. So Hagen does, he finishes 53rd out of 54, which everybody out there is probably just tore up over this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Going, oh my God, Hagen can't win. We're hanging on every story. Hagen's been winning everything. How can he lose this one? So there's a little consolation prize. So we'll wrap it up. We wrap it up on a good, positive note.
Hooks back up with the actress.
No. That would be awesome. In the movie, we can write that in because that's awesome. That would be a great. You see some pictures of her. That would be
drinking.
That would be a great
with Connie at the tavern.
That would be a great finale to the story, regardless of winning or losing. But anyway, so 1920, Hagen Hagen and Jim Barnes and Duncan, who won the British Open, and Abe Mitchell. These guys, basically the foursome, the four guys that have played at that the little tournament prior to the British Open. The four guys. There's the French Open is about to play, right? So there's the British Open, there's the French Open. So it's a national. It's not a major, but it's a national title, right? Sure. So they're like, well, hell, let's go to France, right? Yeah, and Hagen wants to see. And Hagen also wants to. What's interesting, he talks about how he wanted to go and see the battlefields of World War I. Oh, yeah. So these things are still raw, right? He's going over there to check out the battlefields of World War I at this point. So he's like, well, I can go see the battlefields, and I can also go see. It would also potentially come back with a little bit of self-respect if I go win this French Open, right? And so he goes over. And so just like when he arrives at the British clubhouse, Hagen is going to have another incident with regards to not being able to go to the French clubhouse, but this one is way worse.
Oh my God.
This one is way worse, right? So this is so as they're leading up to to this French Open in 1920, yeah. And so he says, I had intended making a trip to Paris for some fun after the fiasco at Deal. But during the time I was in London, George Duncan, Abe Mitchell, and I became very good friends. So we decided the three of us would enter the French Open. I take it back. Jim Barnes wasn't there. Jim Barnes is part of a ton of other stories with him. Mm-hmm. So Jim Barnes doesn't look like was there, but so it was the two guys, Duncan and Mitchell. Like I say, Duncan had won the U.S. Open or the British Open, and Abe Mitchell. But during the time I was in London, George Duncan, Abe Mitchell, and I became very good friends. So we decided the three of us would enter the French Open. The accommodations for pros at Deal had seemed to me unbelievably bad and inhospitable. But Le Bouley, which is the course in France, so Le Bouley was much worse. Oh. We were directed to an old and very much in use stable, equipped with several nails for our clothes and a table for refreshments, we were told. The vile odor and the hundreds of flies swarming about added to the disgust I felt. Duncan and Mitchell had grown up in England and were long accustomed to the acceptance of the rigid ruling which barred pros from using or even entering the clubhouses of the famed old British golf courses. But we had a meeting, and they agreed with me that it was an impossible situation. This place is so bad; this is impossible. Jeez. It's a barn. Yeah. They redirected them to a barn.
Oh my God.
So keep in mind, George Duncan had just won the British Open, and Walter Hagen's the best golfer in the United States, and they're directed to a stable, right? That's how they treat pros out there. Yeah. And so, with their concurrence and presence to back me up, I strode into the office of the president, Monsieur Pierre Deschamps, and put it to him bluntly: we were to change and eat in the clubhouse, or else. And that "or else" carried plenty of weight. For Duncan, as the current holder of the British Open title, Abe Mitchell is the winner of the British Informal Open in 1919 and runner-up to Duncan in 1920, and I, as the American Open title holder, were definitely the drawing cards for his French Open. If we three withdrew, he was in big trouble. Big trouble. And the tall Frenchman aristocrat knew when he was stymied. He gave into our demand, but this was the payoff. He would allow only the three of us to enter the clubhouse. None of the other pros were to enjoy the privilege. The shock of winning our point was so great for Mitchell that Duncan and I had to half push him into the sanctified area of the members and the amateurs. For those two British golfers, this was a major revolution we had staged. So they had to basically drag Mitchell in. He's like,
no, we shouldn't. It's crazy.
This is insane. I can't believe
we can't go in
there.
We
can't go in here. This is everything. This goes up against everything I've ever learned. Wow. This is mind-blowing. They said they almost had to drag Mitchell in. And I had to half push him into the sanctified area, like he's going into the holy of holies in the church, right? Like, and for those two, this was a major revolution. This is an American,
but it still was just the three of them. All the other pros playing are like,
true.
Off to the stables with
that
you.
was the concession they made. However, but it's these little steps. Like when you're talking about some of the biggest changes that have ever happened in the history of the world. All these changes start with a single, even if it's a miniature breakthrough.
The camel's nose is in the tent.
Yes. In this case, they are, this was a major revolution we had staged. Like this is as I said from like one of the first episodes of this Walter Hagen segment that we're doing, is that this is going to be a recurring theme. They go to this clubhouse, they're rejected, they're denied, whatever it is, and now Hagen is starting to fight back.
Right. Yeah.
And these two British guys, they were led by an American saying, screw these guys, man. We're coming into their clubhouse. They're like, this is an impossible situation. They're not going to the stable to change. And Hagen, rather than say, okay, well, they'll let us go to a local hotel to change. They'll buy us a hotel room to change in.
No,
Hagen says,
that.
Screw that. We're going to the clubhouse.
Yeah.
These two guys are like, what are you talking about, Hagen? And the one, Duncan's like, I kind of like that idea. And Mitchell's going, we can't do that. Are you out of your mind? That's the holy ground. And so as I'm saying, like, that's sort of the final example of this American invasion. Like this American golf. America has bred its own golfing elements, and it's bringing this over to Europe, and it's starting to change the game there. You see what I'm saying? So, and you can just see it in this one year, the numerous things that have happened that are influential, massively influential. You see, so. So Hagen, so the sort of like you say, the light at the end of the tunnel, the little cherry on top of the cake or whatever, is that Hagen beats Eugene Laffitte in a 36-hole playoff to win the 1920 French Open.
Nice.
And so this would begin. This was the second year that Hagen had won a National Open championship. Like last year, he won the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
In this case, he wins the French Open. So it's not a major, but he wins a National Open, which is like the country's like best trophy.
Yep.
So this is the second of 11 straight years.
Wow.
Where Hagen will win a National Open championship in some regard. You know what I mean? Like, so like whether it's a French Open or a Mexico Open or whatever it is, he's going to win a National Open every year after this for another 9 years straight.
Dang.
Yeah. So you can see. So the American invasion. That's a wrap.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Cool. So, wow, we really swam around in that one for a while.
Yeah, but it's. I think, like I say, I think it was a good. It's I think it's well titled. This was the influence of American golf, sort of. Which the American golf is growing in its own little world, and then it comes over to Britain. They're like, "What do you guys mean you don't spin the ball? What do you mean you don't? What do you mean you don't have backspin on the ball? What do you mean you don't? What do you mean we can't? We still can't come into the clubhouses? What are you talking about? What do you mean you don't dress like kind of flashy and cool like we do? What do you mean? You know what I mean? Like this is it's a totally their American culture, American golf is this is the Roaring '20s. This is when America is blossoming into the America that is going to be like the economic superpower of the world,
right.
And this is American culture is spreading, and you can see right here an example of the spread of American culture into a major institution like British golf, which has already been huge for years.
All right, well, that was a ton of fun, man. We got more to do with Walter, though. Lots more to do. We're only in 1920.
1920. We got to get up to 1935.
That's it.
And I don't think we're necessarily going to take it year by year, but there's just been some really good years in here.
That was good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. Thanks for coming along for the party. Thanks for Chris for the memes. You're cracking me up. And thanks, everybody, for listening. And we'll do it again. The website, DetroitCityOfChampions.com. And, we'll see you next time. Detroit City of Champions, the podcast.